Listen, my life was messed up too. And I suppose in one way or the other, I have broken all God's commandments in some way.
Dale Evans, famously crowned the Queen of the West, spent her life right beside the legendary cowboy Roy Rogers, charming audiences with tales of love, faith, and hope that lit up the silver screen. To the world, they looked picture perfect, the symbol of clean-cut American dreams and timeless romance. But behind that polished image hid a story, drenched in pain, secrets, and heartbreak. And as the years rolled on, the truth she carried, especially about her husband, grew too heavy to hide any longer. In her final years, when her body ached and her heart was tired, Dale finally broke her silence and exposed the secret that had haunted her for decades. Before she became the glamorous cowgirl everyone adored, Dale Evans was known as Frances Octavia Smith, born on October 31, 1912, in Uvalde, Texas. Her childhood wasn't the stuff of fairy tales. It was filled with uncertainty and emotional storms. People called her Frances, and much of her young life was spent under the care of her uncle, Dr. E.L. Massey, a respected physician in Ula, Arkansas. But even in a doctor's household, safety and comfort didn't last long. Struggles always seemed to find her. At just 14 years old, Frances made a bold, almost reckless move. She ran off and married a man named Thomas F. Fox. By 15, she was already a mother, welcoming a baby boy named Thomas F. Fox Jr. into the world. But her dream of building a loving family shattered fast. Within a year, her husband walked away, leaving her alone in Memphis, Tennessee. A teenager, a mother, and completely on her own. She had to survive and provide, so she turned to her one true passion, music. With a fierce determination, she started performing on local radio stations, WMC and WREC, singing her heart out and playing piano just to make ends meet. Life didn't suddenly get easier, but little by little, her name began to mean something. By 1929, she was divorced, worn down, yet still chasing her dream of a career in music that always seemed just out of reach. Then came a twist that changed everything. While working at WOS Radio in Louisville, Kentucky, a station manager pulled her aside and told her she needed a name that popped, something people could remember. He suggested Dale Evans. The name had spark, energy, and charm, everything Frances wanted to be known for. She didn't hesitate for a second. She embraced it, believing this new name could finally bring her the clean slate she'd been searching for. And it worked. As Dale Evans, she found her rhythm, singing jazz, swing, and big band tunes with a voice that wrapped warmth and strength into every note. Audiences couldn't get enough of her. Her growing fame caught Hollywood's attention, and soon she landed a screen test that changed her destiny. Before long, Dale Evans had a contract with 20th Century Fox Studios, the same studio that would soon pair her with a man who would define her story forever. Dale Evans was finally shining under the bright lights of Hollywood, but fame came with a heavy price. Behind every smile and sparkling gown, studio executives were watching her every move, determined to keep her image squeaky clean. They demanded perfection. No scandals, no secrets, no slip-ups. To keep her rising career safe, they went as far as creating a lie so polished it almost sounded real. According to the story the studio pushed, Dale wasn't a single mother. She was just a devoted, unmarried sister taking care of her younger brother, Tommy. But the heartbreaking truth? Tommy was her son, Thomas F. Fox Jr. Imagine carrying that weight every single day, pretending your child was your sibling just to keep a job. It tore at her, but she had no choice if she wanted to survive in Hollywood's brutal spotlight. Her love life was no less tangled. After her first heartbreak with Thomas Fox, Dale tried again in 1929 when she married August Wayne Johns. Sadly, the spark didn't last. By 1935, the marriage was over. No kids, no lasting joy, just another broken chapter in her search for love. But Dale wasn't one to give up easily. In 1937, she walked down the aisle once more, this time with Robert Dale Butts, a musician who shared her passion for music. Their bond was built on work, not romance, more about performances and piano notes than heartbeats and passion. Together, they hustled to push her singing career higher, but the emotional connection faded fast. By 1946, that marriage had quietly crumbled too, ending in divorce and leaving Dale once again alone, trying to piece her life together while chasing a dream that kept demanding more from her. Yet while her heart was breaking, her career was soaring. At 20th Century Fox, Dale was becoming a star name, celebrated for her rich, powerful voice that fit perfectly with the jazz, swing, and big band craze of the time. Crowds loved her energy, her charm, and her confidence. Her fame started spreading far beyond Hollywood when she became a regular on the hit Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy radio show, one of the biggest programs in the country. Every week, her voice reached millions, and America couldn't get enough of her. But the studio wasn't done shaping her image. They dressed her up in glamorous cowgirl outfits, embroidered gloves, sparkling rhinestones, and boots that shined under the stage lights. They turned her into the perfect Western star, dazzling, confident, and unforgettable. The transformation worked like magic. Then came the year 1944, the turning point that would change her life forever. Dale was cast opposite Roy Rogers in The Cowboy and the Señorita, and their chemistry was instant. It wasn't just acting. There was something real between them, something neither could ignore. At the time, both were still married, Roy to his wife Arlene, and Dale to Robert Dale Butts. But fate had other plans. In 1946, tragedy struck when Arlene died shortly after giving birth to their son, Roy Jr. Suddenly, Roy was a widower, raising 3 children alone. Having known heartbreak herself, Dale stepped in, offering comfort, strength, and understanding during his darkest hours. And from that shared pain, a powerful bond began to grow, one that would soon capture the attention of the entire world. Their friendship didn't just grow, it bloomed into real, unstoppable love. By late 1947, Roy Rogers was completely smitten and decided to make his move in true cowboy fashion. Picture this: Roy, sitting tall on his horse trigger right before riding into a packed Chicago rodeo arena, turns to Dale and asks her to marry him. It was bold, dramatic, and pure Hollywood magic. That proposal marked the start of a love story that would go down in legend. On December 31st, 1947, while filming Home in Oklahoma, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans tied the knot at the Flying L Ranch in Oklahoma. It was her 4th marriage and his 3rd, but this one felt different, stronger, and unshakable. Together, they became Hollywood royalty, the king of the cowboys and the queen of the West. After their vows, Dale fully embraced Roy's 3 children, Cheryl, Linda Lou, and Roy Jr., known to everyone as Dusty. And in turn, Roy opened his heart to Tommy, the son Dale had once been forced to hide under Hollywood's cruel lies. For the first time, Dale could proudly say, "This is my son," and mean it with her whole heart. Their blended family became the heartbeat of their lives, loud, loving, a little chaotic, but filled with faith and strength. Then, in 1950, joy and sorrow arrived hand in hand. Dale gave birth to their only biological child, Robin Elizabeth, a precious baby girl, born with Down syndrome and serious health challenges. In those days, families were pressured to keep children like Robin hidden from the public eye. But Dale and Roy refused to live by those cruel rules. They loved their daughter openly, proudly, and without shame. Their decision shocked Hollywood. People whispered behind their backs, but Dale didn't care. She and Roy stood firm, showing the world what true love looked like. Love that didn't hide, didn't pretend, and didn't break under judgment. That act of courage changed how many saw them. They weren't just America's cowboy couple anymore. They were parents who stood tall for compassion and truth. But even the strongest hearts can't always escape heartbreak. In 1952, tragedy struck when little Robin passed away just weeks before her 2nd birthday. The loss shattered Dale's spirit in ways she could barely put into words. Her faith, once her guiding light, flickered under the weight of unimaginable pain. The world around her felt empty and cold, as if all the joy had drained away. Yet out of that darkness, Dale found something powerful: purpose. In 1953, she took her grief and turned it into something beautiful, a book titled Angel Unaware. She wrote it as if Robin were speaking from heaven, sharing love and wisdom beyond her short years. The story stunned Hollywood but moved hearts across the nation. Parents who had suffered similar losses saw their own pain reflected in Dale's words, and for the first time, many felt seen and understood. In a time when people avoided talking about children with developmental challenges, Dale broke the silence. She called for kindness, understanding, and respect for every child, no matter their condition. She later said the book was both a confession and a release, her way of keeping Robin's spirit alive while shining a light on those who the world too often overlooked. Her sorrow became her strength, and through that pain, Dale Evans became more than just a star. She became a voice for love, acceptance, and hope. The power of Dale's words hit fast and hit deep. Letters started pouring in, stacks of them, from parents who finally felt seen, from families who had carried silent heartbreak for years. People shared stories of loss, quiet bravery, and the fragile hope Dale's book had sparked in them. For so long, the world had turned away from children with disabilities, but Dale's message cracked that wall wide open. Slowly, hearts began to change. Compassion started replacing shame, and new organizations began forming, ones focused on care, acceptance, and true inclusion for every child. In Oklahoma, the County Council for Mentally Challenged Children decided to honor Dale's bravery in the most beautiful way, by renaming their center after her. It turned little Robin's short life into a legacy that would outlive them all. To the public, Dale was no longer just a glamorous Western star. She had become something greater, a symbol of grace, courage, and unconditional love. She gave grieving parents a voice, and in doing so, gave her own pain a purpose. But beneath that public strength, Dale carried a private sorrow, a quiet ache that never really went away. Those hidden burdens would later rise to the surface when she revealed shocking truths about her past and her marriage that few could have imagined. Even with grief shadowing her heart, the 1950s became the golden era for Dale and Roy Rogers. Together, they ruled the Western world. Movie after movie, from Don't Fence Me In to Under California Stars, kept their names glowing on every theater marquee. From 1951 to 1957, The Roy Rogers Show became a national sensation. Every week, families tuned in, crowding around their black and white TVs to watch Roy ride in on his loyal horse Trigger, with Dale close behind on her beautiful buckskin mare, Buttermilk. Their adventures weren't just entertainment, they were lessons in faith, courage, and doing what's right, and people couldn't get enough of them. Their fame didn't stop at television and film, it flowed straight into music. Dale's tender, emotional voice gave their songs heart, while Roy's easygoing cowboy charm made them unforgettable. Together, they created the image of America's perfect Western couple. Their hit song Happy Trails became more than a tune. It was a national anthem of hope and optimism, capturing the spirit they lived by both on and off the screen. At home, life was just as full, noisy, loving, and wonderfully chaotic. Alongside Roy's 3 children from his first marriage and Dale's son Tommy, the couple opened their hearts even wider. They adopted 4 more children, Mimi from Scotland, Dodie, a Native American girl, and 2 boys, Sandy and Debbie. Their home became a colorful mix of backgrounds and stories, all bound by love, faith, and the firm values that kept them grounded despite their fame. But happiness in the Rogers household was once again shattered by tragedy. In 1964, disaster struck. Their 12-year-old adopted daughter, Debbie, was killed in a horrific church bus accident. The news broke them. It was a pain no parent should ever face, raw, crushing, and impossible to make sense of. Fame couldn't shield them, and faith, for a time, couldn't heal them. Dale would later describe that year as one of the darkest periods of her life. She was haunted by guilt and endless what-ifs, replaying the tragedy again and again in her mind. For both Roy and Dale, losing Debbie reopened the deep wound left by little Robin's passing years before. The weight of both losses pressed hard on their hearts, testing everything they had built: their marriage, their faith, and the family they had fought so hard to hold together. Yet somehow, even in the face of unbearable grief, they stood tall for the world to see, smiling through the pain, showing a strength that inspired millions, even when their own hearts were breaking behind closed doors. Roy and Dale finally made a heartbreaking decision. They left their beloved Chatsworth Ranch, a place that had once been filled with laughter but now carried the heavy echo of loss. Every corner, every wall seemed to whisper memories of the pain they'd endured. So, seeking a fresh start and some kind of peace, they packed up and moved to the Double R Bar Ranch in Apple Valley, California. The open skies and quiet desert gave them a bit of relief, but even there, the ache of losing Debbie lingered like a shadow they couldn't shake. After that move, something in Dale's voice began to change. The sparkle of the Hollywood cowgirl softened into something deeper, more real, more raw. Her speeches, interviews, and books started to carry a weight that hadn't been there before. She began talking openly about grief, faith, and doubt, things Hollywood once told her to keep hidden. The perfect, smiling image carefully built by studio executives slowly faded, replaced by a woman unafraid to tell the truth about pain and healing, even as she privately wrestled with her own faith and the quiet struggles inside her marriage. By the 1960s, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans weren't just entertainers anymore. They had become symbols of moral strength and faith for an entire nation. Dale especially took her beliefs seriously. She became a bold and passionate voice for Christian values, using her fame to speak about the importance of spirituality in everyday life. In 1964, she stood in front of thousands at a massive Los Angeles rally calling for prayer to return to public schools. Her message was loud and clear. America's children need spiritual direction. Her words struck a chord, stirring both admiration and controversy. But Dale didn't stop at speeches. She threw herself into political and social causes that matched her convictions. She openly supported conservative movements and even campaigned for presidential candidate Barry Goldwater, using her platform to make her voice heard. Faith had become the center of her identity. It shaped her songs, her books, and the way she connected with her fans. To the public, she and Roy still looked like the perfect, unbreakable couple, the very image of devotion and shared belief. But behind the polished smiles and wholesome image, their marriage held secrets that the cameras never caught. Years later, Dale would open up about what life with Roy was really like, and it wasn't always the fairy tale fans imagined. While the world adored Roy as the gentle king of the cowboys, Dale quietly admitted that at home, he could be strict, demanding, and sometimes hard to reach emotionally. Their partnership, though legendary, wasn't without tension. The same strength that made them icons on screen often clashed behind closed doors. And for Dale, the loneliness was real. Long stretches apart, while Roy toured, filmed, or performed, left her isolated and longing for connection. She once confessed that no amount of fame could ease that kind of emptiness. But perhaps the deepest wound she carried came from the secret she had been forced to keep for so many years, the lie about her son, Tommy. During her early Hollywood career, Dale had been pressured to claim that Tommy was her younger brother, a deception created to protect her pure image. Even after the truth finally came out once she married Roy, the guilt and sorrow from those years didn't fade. Dale later admitted that pretending her own son wasn't hers had quietly haunted her soul, leaving scars that never fully healed. Dale Evans refused to let pain keep her silent. She turned every heartbreak into purpose and power. Instead of hiding behind the sparkle of fame, she poured her emotions into her writing, giving comfort to others who were walking through their own storms. Over the years, she wrote more than a dozen books, heartfelt, spiritual, and raw, offering strength to grieving parents and reminding readers to hold tight to their faith through loss and struggle. Dale often said in interviews that she didn't want to be remembered for the rhinestones, the glittering cowgirl costumes, or the Hollywood fame, but for her honesty. She believed that showing her scars could help others face their pain without fear, and she meant every word. Even when Dale spoke her truth, she never tore Roy down in public. She admitted their marriage had its share of struggles, but she also praised the deep love, loyalty, and mutual respect that had kept them together for more than 50 years. Theirs wasn't a story of perfection. It was one of endurance, faith, and forgiveness. Through triumphs and heartbreaks, through loss and laughter, Dale and Roy stood side by side, bonded by something real. Not flawless, but faithful. As the decades rolled on and television changed, Roy and Dale's fame only grew warmer with nostalgia. Through the 1970s and 1980s, they became living symbols of a simpler, golden Hollywood era. They appeared together on reunion shows and talk programs, reminiscing about the days when westerns ruled the screen and families gathered around to watch The Roy Rogers Show. Their smiles, their chemistry, and their timeless warmth made people fall in love with them all over again. By the 1990s, Dale found a new mission. She launched her own faith-based television program, continuing to put her belief in God at the very heart of her message. Even as her body aged, her voice stayed strong and full of conviction. But behind the scenes, life was shifting. Time was catching up with both of them, and Roy's health began to decline. Dale, always steadfast, stayed right by his side, caring for him with the same devotion she'd shown throughout their life together. When Roy Rogers passed away on July 6, 1998, it was more than just the loss of a husband. It was the end of an era. Fans around the world mourned the cowboy who had captured their hearts. But for Dale, the grief ran deeper than words could touch. She had lost not only her partner in faith and fame, but the man who had shared more than half a century of her journey, the laughter, the pain, the love, the legacy. In her final years, Dale lived quietly as a widow, navigating life without Roy's presence beside her. Her body grew weaker, but it was the emotional weight that pressed hardest on her spirit. No longer bound by the need to protect a Hollywood image, she became even more open and reflective. She spoke honestly about the loneliness she'd often felt during Roy's long tours, about the challenges of his strict parenting style, and about the heavy guilt she still carried for once pretending her son, Tommy, was her brother to please studio executives. Those confessions stunned fans who had always seen the couple as the picture of perfection, but Dale didn't back down. She believed the truth mattered more than reputation. Her daughter Dodie later said that Dale saw life for what it really was, a blend of both joy and suffering, and that sharing both sides was an act of bravery. Dale Evans's final years were filled with honesty, grace, and the quiet peace that comes from finally telling the truth. On February 7, 2001, at the age of 88, the Queen of the West took her last ride, just 3 years after Roy, leaving behind not just Hollywood memories, but a legacy of faith, courage, and the kind of love that doesn't fade with time. In her final days, Dale Evans radiated a peaceful kind of strength, the calm that comes when someone has finally made peace with every joy and every heartbreak. According to her children, those last moments were filled with quiet acceptance. She often spoke of being ready to see Roy again, ready to hold the children she had lost, ready to let go of the weight she had carried for so many years. Her family described her as gentle and clear-minded, speaking softly about love, faith, and gratitude. There was no fear in her, only a deep, knowing peace. When Dale took her final breath, it felt like the closing of a story written in faith and fire, the end of one of Hollywood's most legendary love stories. For over half a century, she and Roy Rogers had defined what it meant to be America's beloved couple, the King and Queen of the West. But behind the bright lights, the rhinestone costumes, and the smiles seen by millions, there lived a woman of astonishing depth. Her death didn't just end a chapter, it revealed how much more there had always been behind the curtain, the pain, the persistence, and the private courage that shaped her into someone far greater than her on-screen persona. Beneath all the fame and glitter, Dale's story was never about perfection. It was about perseverance. She had endured heartache that would have broken most people, a string of failed marriages, the loss of 2 beloved daughters, and the burden of a lie that haunted her for decades. Yet she faced every trial with grace and faith, turning her pain into purpose and her sorrow into strength. Even when life stripped away her illusions, Dale kept choosing hope. That resilience, that refusal to give up on love or on life, became the true legacy she left behind. In her last years, Dale no longer cared about Hollywood's illusions. She wanted truth. She wanted people to know that real faith wasn't about pretending everything was perfect. It was about holding on when everything felt broken. Her final confessions, about her struggles, her guilt, her doubts, reminded the world that even legends carry wounds they can't hide forever. And instead of shame, she met those truths with courage. When the news of her passing spread, tributes poured in from around the world. Fans remembered her kindness, her radiant smile, and the deep honesty that defined her later life. They didn't just mourn a star. They mourned a woman who had dared to live and love with her whole heart, no matter the cost. Dale Evans's story didn't end with her death. It became a testament to faith, forgiveness, and endurance. She showed that strength isn't the absence of pain. It's the choice to keep shining through it. And so, even now, her voice still echoes like a prayer carried on the wind of the western sky, reminding us that even legends are human and that the truest kind of grace is born from the hardest battles. Dale Evans' legacy still rides strong today, not just in old film reels or dusty cowboy memorabilia, but in the hearts of everyone who ever found strength in her story. She proved that life, even for Hollywood legends, isn't all glitter and spotlight. It's about faith, courage, and the will to keep going when the road gets rough. Dale and Roy may have worn crowns as the King and Queen of the West, but what made them truly royal was their humanity, the way they turned loss into love and hardship into hope. Long after the cameras stopped rolling, Dale's words kept shining. Her books, her songs, and her honesty still speak to anyone who's ever faced heartbreak and wondered how to move forward. She didn't just inspire through her success. She inspired through her truth. By the end of her life, she wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing peace. And she found it in her faith, her family, and in the memories of the people she loved most. Even today, when people think of Dale Evans and Roy Rogers, they don't just see movie stars. They see symbols of devotion, resilience, and faith that never faded, even when the spotlight did. Their story reminds us that legends aren't born from perfection. They're made from endurance, forgiveness, and the courage to face the truth head-on. Dale's confessions peeled back the Hollywood illusion and showed the world that even icons bleed, cry, and rise again, and that's exactly why her legacy still matters. So as we close this chapter, take a moment to remember the woman behind the cowgirl hat, the one who dared to tell her story without fear. Dale Evans wasn't just a star, she was a light, one that kept shining long after the cameras turned off. Her final message to the world wasn't about fame or success. It was about love, honesty, and the power of faith to carry us through anything life throws our way. If you've been moved by Dale's story, make sure to show some love. Hit that like button. It really helps us out. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story packed with untold Hollywood secrets and powerful truths. Drop a comment below and tell us what part of Dale's journey hit you the hardest. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching and for keeping the spirit of the West alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video.